Erev Shabbos. The most familiar verse in the Torah comes from this week's portion. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God is one. The first word, Shema, is the imperative form for hear or listen. How do you listen? In order to be receptive to anything, first we have to quiet our internal voices, in addition to whatever's going on around us, like our phones beeping and bleeping all the time. We have to quiet the voice inside our head that's formulating the response to whatever is happening, even before it happens. Then we have to reflect. We have to take a moment to let the message sink in, and then maybe we can learn something from what we've heard. If what we hear just confirms everything we know, it wasn't worth the exercise. That's real listening, real hearing. The Gemara in Psachim, the Talmud suggests that the origins of Shema are actually much earlier than this, earlier than Devarim, the last book of the Chumash. When Jacob, Yaakov, whose name you'll remember was changed to Yisrael, was about to leave this world, way back at the end of the book of Genesis, Bereshit, he called all his children together. He was worried, concerned about his legacy. So he said, "My children, maybe you have some untoward thoughts in your hearts. Maybe you don't believe that God is one." So all together the children of Israel answered, "Just as your heart is attached to God and you believe God is one and God's name is one, we also believe that." They all said together, "Shema Yisrael." Remember, their father's name was Yisrael. Remember, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And at that moment, their father bowed his head and thanked God that all his children were so virtuous. Quietly, he said, "Blessed is God's name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever." Except he said it in Hebrew. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We learned the Gemara in Barachas a few years back, where we learned that saying this verse is how we, the Jewish people, declare God as the sovereign above and below and in all four directions. Sefer Mitzvot Katan explains it still deeper, that the Aleph in Echad is one in Jewish numerology, Gematria. The Ches stands for 8, which indicates 7 heavens and earth, and Daled is 4 for all 4 points of the compass, all 4 directions around us. In our Friday morning class, which by the way comes with a bagel and coffee, so if you didn't know about it until now, you are warmly invited. We've been talking about prayer and what it does and how we do it and what it means. The book we've been using in recent months talks about the metaphor of a ladder of prayer. We start out on the lower rung, acknowledging all the gifts that we have, all the blessings that we have, morning blessings, appreciating sight and balance and direction and knowledge and so on. And then we move to the next level, a more expressive and emotional place, which is the Psalms of Praise. And then the third rung on the 4-rung ladder is saying the Shema every morning, a more contemplative place where we both acknowledge and we reflect on God's oneness. The 4th rung is the Amidah. We'll talk about that another time. But Shema is really an expression of love, as the next verse starts. Ve'ahavta, you shall love God, your God. It's where we focus our awareness on that oneness, that uniqueness, completeness, singularity of God, and we try to enter into that awareness just a little bit. When we lift up the Torah after we read it on Shabbat morning, try to get a look at this verse. It's written with the ayin of Shema larger than usual and the dalid of Echad larger than usual. The letters ayin and dalid together spell aid, a witness. That's a signal to us that we are testifying to God's oneness. We are God's witnesses in the world, that God is the real thing. Our existence as a people over 3,000 years itself is a testimony to that. But wait, there's more. Ayin and dalid also spell another word if you switch them around, da. That means no. It's important for us to have faith, emunah. It's important to us to do what we say, mitzvot. But if anyone tries to tell you that it's faith alone, that we have to turn off our critical intellectual minds. We can't ask any questions. You tell them otherwise. We also have to know. We have to use our best critical questioning powers of inquiry to get to a point where we not only believe, we not only testify and affirm, but where we know that God is God and God is one. There's actually a conversation in the holy books and the Svarim as to whether the mitzvah that we hear about in this parsha, also from the Aseret Adibris, the Ten Commandments, I am God, your God, Noiche Hashem Elokecha. Is it the mitzvah to believe or the mitzvah to know? Deep down, we probably realize that it's both. The point is made most powerfully in a story we discussed at Na'ila last year, almost a year ago. Just to remind ourselves, the story was told by a fellow who was at the Nova Festival 22 months ago in Israel, and he was wondering early in the morning, should he take off his jacket or should he leave it on? It was early in the morning, it was cool, but the sun was already coming up. He decided to leave it on for a bit longer. When the shooting started, when the terrorists arrived, he looked around and he found a tree that he thought he could climb, and he hoisted himself up, and thanks to the jacket which he had left on, and which happened to be green, he was mostly invisible, camouflaged from the view of the attackers. He stayed motionless in that tree for hours, and we should never try to imagine what he saw from his perch. Somehow, none of the terrorists saw him. Hours later, when the IDF arrived and secured the area, he called out to them in Hebrew, I'm a Jew, rescue me. The soldiers called up to him in the tree, and they said, You're a Jew? Really? So then say Shema Yisrael. With his whole heart, he cried, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And as the soldiers got in place to help him down out of the tree, they started to hear the cry from other trees nearby. Shema Yisrael, Gamani Yehudi, I'm also a Jew. Shema Yisrael. And that seems to affirm another verse from this week's Sedra, which we say each time we take out the Torah, Atem hadvekim b'Hashem Elokeichem chayim kulchem hayom. You are who are connected to God, your God, are alive, all alive this day. These are most challenging times, and God gives us strength and perseverance to get through them together, and it's also a happy time. This Shabbat is Tu B'Av, the 15th day of the month of Av, which the Gemara records as one of the happiest days of the year, along with Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur we'll talk about in weeks to come, and Tu B'Av is a happy day. You'll find that weddings are often celebrated on or close to the 15th of Av. There are many sources and reasons why this day is special. For now, suffice it to say that we are just 6 weeks away from Rosh Hashanah. So we look to complete all that has to be done to make this year a good year, the best it can be, and to begin to look ahead, to start preparing ourselves that the coming year should be even better, please God. With that, we can start wishing each other that we be inscribed and sealed in the book of life for a good, a happy, a healthy, and a sweet new year. Shabbat Shalom.